All right. Good morning, YouTube. What's going on? Halfway through the week for most of us, I guess. Somewhat. Looking on your weather with that big green blob moving east still. Some bad weather coming out of it as well. We'll check in on. Hey, what's up, Sparks? Already in the chat, keeping us on time this morning. All right, prompt timing. We're gonna stay on schedule here. But yeah, there's your snapshot. Again, the west is clear. We're doing pretty good. A little hot on the warm side, but fire weather is our biggest problem this time of year. We have them popping up all over the place, either people's stupidity or otherwise. There was one down in California Monday evening by lightning, but the rest of it seems like are stupid people. But out of this bad weather, we're getting some tornadoes hit Kansas last night. There's a rather large one, I guess. Let's take a look in and listen on this.
Left a trail of damage and injuries across the Midwest. At least 5 people were hurt, one of them critically, when a tornado swept through Eureka, Kansas, east-northeast of Wichita. More than 1,000 customers are still in the dark this morning. 3 tornadoes were reported in southern Wisconsin. One was reported near Cuba City, another north of Platteville, the other near Blanchardville. Northern Illinois narrowly avoided a double dose of tornado damage. A reported twister damaged buildings and knocked out power to customers in Manhattan, Illinois, a small community southeast of Joliet. A second brief tornado was reported in Maple Park. Fortunately, no damage was reported in the small village southeast of Rockford.
All right, so quite a bit of tornado action coming out of these
performance starts here.
These storms moving east. Some of the results there in the Weather Channel link below. That's from yesterday evening's radar. So that's moved on, reminding people to prepare for the worst. If nothing else, and probably looks like we're probably going to have some flooding out of these storms in the east, northeast. Some yellow and red cells moving up. Probably see some stories of flooding coming out of that. So, hey, good morning, Rooster. How you doing? Awake and crowing at the sun. Well, Sparks, there is supposition that in some cases, yeah, that there are some nefarious people who want to get their overtime in this summer, so fires get started. Good morning, M. Long. You got dumped on? Yeah, I'll bet. It looks like it's still kind of lingering over you, too. But I'm sure more so up there in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Walter Davis is probably going to get a good dose of that. He'll report in on, I'm sure. Digger Outdoors, others up in that area. You can do it. There are all kinds of people up there. I think Ohio's taken over the YouTube. So first subject of the day came up last night on the YouTube. I hadn't really been paying attention to this subject, but it kind of all blew up. Everybody's talking about Civil War all of a sudden. There's an article here in the USA Today questioning the direction of Civil War based upon, some of it's based upon the Sanders incident and other things. And then there's one in the Hill talking about a representative talking about moving towards, saying we're moving towards civil war. There's one in the RT that's posing the question. Both within, all these within the last couple of days. And if you, Alicia Clegg did a video on a report on a hit piece a guy did. You can go check that out. It's in the links below. And also Patriot Nurse did a video about the subject. And I was like, okay, there's way too much mainstream talk about this for this not to be a distraction from something. Because they don't bring the subject up if it's a real possibility, I don't think. So there's trying to manipulate people in some way. But I was looking at it, and last year it's a summer thing. I think they just stoke people. They want more of these. They want more of these violent riots to pop up. I was looking at it, a lot of this stuff came up last year during the summer at the same time frame, and whatnot. So, but I put links below to all these articles. I wasn't going to really get into them too hard. It is what it is. But it's interesting that all this talk is going on now. Like it says, the representative says it's moving towards a civil war. What does that really? If I was going to dig into any article, it'd probably be this one. I browsed through it last night, but very interesting that they would focus on these things. So what are they missing when they're covering and talking about this stuff? But the video Alicia did, go check that out. It's definitely some left-wing clickbait. It's good for left-wingers to dream about how they would rule in a civil war scenario. But I can't remember who it was she was commenting on, but it's in there. It's definitely worth a listen. And you kind of get a kick out of it, but that's also let you know kind of how their brains are wired. They're, the way I view it, they're a good 30 years behind the I guess what I would call the constitutional militia groups. There were most of our predecessors and us, and we were in our thought process, thinking that we were going to stand up to the Russians, the whole Wolverine concept. I think that's where the left is. They're kind of in the bright, flashy lights part of it instead of the down in the dirt. Hey, really, what has to happen? What needs to be done to make this effective thought process? If they're capable of doing that, that's a separate subject. But yeah, so that's some of my thoughts. Go check that out, those videos, if you haven't done so already. They are below. What else is going on out there in your all's world? With that being said, I did see a couple things pop up. I like this article. This came out of Reading, state of Jefferson. But the commentary here in this paper is, never mind Cal exit, other states may want to get rid of California. There's a true statement, if you've ever heard one. So let's see what he goes into here. So he's talking about the referendum to split California into 3 states. The last time anybody did this, obviously, was West Virginia. But he's saying that might not happen this time if California voters decide in a couple of years to divorce the rest of America. So he's kind of talking about the Civil War thing too, or just talking about the secession thing? Let's go on. So there's a lawsuit that says California has gotten too big for its britches. So there's a lawsuit that bears the name of a group of egg and poultry growers in Canada came across to Quebec. Only 1/5 of American states is no plant. Does this have California's no cage eggs or whatever? This came up last year. This is so there's a lawsuit now in Canada. So the lawsuit states, so California is flouting the limits federal law puts on California's regulatory reach. California lacks cultural commerce beyond its borders, but California is enacting law after law governing other states. So it's been filed with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So Quebec and 11 states supported and object laws like the 2008 Proposition 2, which mandates that eggs and poultry sold in California must come from chickens that can turn freely in their cages. Yeah. California's Global Warming Solutions Act of 2006. That California rule makes businesses that sell fuels in California reduce the carbon intensity of their fuels by 10%, which means they're less efficient. Objecting states also worry that California may start a contagion effect affecting their businesses negatively. So on in the legal brief, worse still, other states like Massachusetts and Colorado have begun to follow California's lead and pass extraterritorial laws themselves. So here it goes on. Nowhere is this more clear than in the Northwest Consortium of States, a region extending from Maine south to Maryland, which automatically adopts California's smog standards shortly after they take effect here. This has been a major hindrance for Trump and the ironically named Environmental Protection Administration. He now controls they try to eliminate environmental protections begun and inspired by California. So they're all in cahoots. California has become so emboldened by a failure to enforce federal laws against interstate trade barriers that it has taken the unprecedented step of sending agricultural inspectors to other states to register and inspect. Yeah, that would be a problem. Wow, they probably do that in Nevada too, I bet. It probably has to do with organic farm labeling and everything else too. So that goes back to that cage law. They have to, if you import eggs into California, the chickens have to have so much room for chicken egg layers. But other states have filed suit along with Quebec. So this is an escalation, says Marcus Ruiz Evans, president of the Yes California organization, now circulating the pro-secession initiative petitions. This makes very bold statements about how California is a threat to America itself. Yeah. Interesting take from the state of Jefferson here, which he doesn't mention, even though he's in Reading. So he finishes up the lawsuit, seems to reinforce the earlier prediction that no civil war or war of any type would follow if California declares its independence. Nobody would care. It's a good riddance. Much of the rest of America may resent California for its there's a word for you, salabrous climate, its mix of lifestyles, and its liberal politics, but that doesn't necessarily mean it would cheerily wave goodbye and good luck if California suddenly decides to secede. Well, there might be a little bit of waving. So that's an interesting article. Over the whole California exit issue. What's Rooster got to say here? The DEA came to your Rooster's pharmacy. They voluntarily gave up their license. So your local pharmacy gave up their pharmacy license just because? Like, what's the issue? Or is there some sort of pharmacy regulation I'm not aware of, Rooster? Is this a California specific thing or just you're saying in general? I'm kind of confused. Good morning, Alicia. You got the chosen one as your, is it Senate candidate? He's running for Senate, correct? I forwarded a tweet to you yesterday about that. I don't know if you saw it. Plus, we spotlighted your video earlier in the chat too, Alicia. Tell everybody to go check out that Civil War talk. That was a good one. Good morning, Barry. How's it going? Walter Davis, good morning. We were talking about the rain you're fixing to get. Be on the lookout. It's coming. So moving on from California, other subject we've been covering here, the water issue. We hit India, Sao Paulo, Cape Town, now Pakistan. This is actually from a week ago. There were several other articles similar talking about Pakistan has a water crisis. I just chose this one. This is the Diplomat. But Pakistan is currently facing an acute water shortage that is likely to wreak havoc in the country in the coming years. Now, is this potable water or is this just water as a whole? That's the key thing here. Some of these places don't have wells. They don't have well systems. They don't drill wells well. So moving on here. Recently, the Indus River System Authority highlighted a grave water shortage in the Indus Basin irrigation system, the world's largest contiguous irrigation system. Wow. For the summer crop season, the timing of the crisis is critical and has delayed the sowing of the country's main cash crops, including cotton. Experts believe the authorities were aware of the approaching acute water shortage because of shortages during the winter cropping season. So what about India? Doesn't this affect India too? Huh. But they're going to focus on Pakistan? Well, we talked about India last week, so let's move on to Pakistan. So this is a different form of water shortage though than what they were talking about. India was overall potable water strains in many different areas. This is in the one basin. Obviously, they're talking about. So moving on. In Pakistan, the sign of water stress ubiquitous. Why do people have to use such big words? Don't they know it's the morning? The signs of water stress are ubiquitous in the form of water scarcity, resource depletion, and contamination. The catastrophe implicates the country's incompetent leadership and its inept administration and poor management of available natural water resources. That's why the central government shouldn't be in charge of them. This has made Pakistan vulnerable to long drought spells and extreme floods. I don't know that incompetent government leadership causes droughts or extreme floods. They need to look at the weather patterns more so for something like that. And here in the next statement, the climate change led water crisis. So is it the government's fault that they're vulnerable to long drought spells and floods, or is it climate change led water crisis? Make up your mind. This This guy needs to learn what he's trying to focus on his enemy, I guess. Who's your real antagonist in your article? So is it not only a threat to summer cropper season, but also adversely affect generation of hydroelectricity? There might be issues here with translation too. This might have been translated from into English from another language, so that might have been causing some of these problems. So we can't blame the author totally. Such a crisis is inevitable in a country where political leaders are busy slinging mud at each other and lust for power while lacking vision. Who hasn't heard that at least a dozen times? Leaders impose the construction of new infrastructure for storing water. The fact that the word dam has been made highly controversial and that its use often spurs heated discussions between the constituent provinces aptly highlights Pakistan's predicament. Yeah, I wonder how Pakistan manages dams, because that would directly affect India. What kind of agreements or how their water sharing out of the river basin like that works. Just like we pretty much dried up the Colorado going into Mexico. So Pakistan is running out of fresh water at an alarming rate. Authorities anticipate it is likely to suffer a shortage of 31 million acre feet of water by 2025. 31, that's a lot of water. The shortfall will be devastating to a country with an agricultural-based economy. Nearly 70% of Pakistan's population is directly or indirectly associated with agriculture. It accounts for 26% of the gross domestic product. It'd be interesting to see the map of how this runs out. I guess we could pull up a Google Maps showing it'd probably break it out pretty easily of the way the river, different tributaries run down into the Indus, but interesting. So its effect on farmings, moving on down. It's kind of a long article here. But in Pakistan, the majority of agricultural land is irrigated after accounting for ground and rainwater with fresh water from the Ibis. The Ibis is fed through two major dams, including Tarbela and Mangala, which since their constructions have lost storage capacity due to enormous silt deposits. Both reservoirs are already hitting a dead level and are likely to carry forward the required flow and are unlikely to carry forward the required flow for the summer crops. Yeah, this is bad. So anticipated water flow for the summer season is 95 million acre feet against 112 million acre feet average of the past 10 years. So well below, what's that, 17 million acre feet shortage. Both reservoirs can only store up to 14 million acre feet of the 145 million acre feet that annually flows through the country. So really a shortage problem. So a lot of the water's exiting. But again, they're not going to be able to just keep all that. So if 145 million acre feet annually flows through the country, what exits into India, and what kind of agreement do they have to pass on or maintain? That'd be an interesting question. I'm sure India wouldn't just let them keep whatever they want. They might start fighting over that. So they have a management issue more so than anything, along with some drought going on. Moving on down here, he says the farming community is wasting a tremendous amount of fresh water by using outdated flood irrigation methods. Almost about 95% of fresh water is utilized for irrigation, and yet the country is achieving a lower per acre crop production when compared to India and China in the region. I wonder, they need to get some Nevada farmers out there I don't know that they would do it any differently than we do. Most lot of the farmers work off flood irrigation out here in the West in general. So this article goes on down and on down, but obviously they're having water problems of directly affecting farming and the population. As he mentioned, there's several issues with hydroelectricity as well. Um, there's a recently passed national water policy, which has to be enforced, basically, he says. Is asking for commissions to monitor the effect of efficient water resource management. Asking for more government, usually not the solution, just FYI. Yeah, Pakistan needs to learn from Nevada. Pakistan needs to learn from countries with even less water but higher domestic product and better quality of life indicators, such as Israel, a country right in the middle of the desert that has been able to reuse effluent to irrigate about 40% of its agricultural land. Yeah, using different methods would be probably beneficial for them in particular. It's a challenge for the state to save water, not only for agriculture, but also for human consumption and to meet rising demand. Yeah, they could be in a pickle if they don't. It's amazing to me how these people subsisted in these areas for so many centuries without efficient well. They always used ground surface water. They didn't even, I mean, we were digging wells in places in Afghanistan. You're like, they've been here for centuries just living off of surface runoff water. It's like the Russians, the Britons, nobody ever, never stuck the effect of digging a well. Something that what we consider simple in a lot of ways. While there is some challenges with some of the terrain, you still can find ways to dig wells, even in some of those high mountain areas. But it's never been part of their culture, part of their, I don't know. It's bizarre in my mind when we were doing it. It's like, wow, people live in this place this long where there's water pretty much only 4 months of the year for runoff, maybe if they're lucky, and they've lived and subsisted off that with some damming of local little tributaries, but nothing significant. So they get a lot of surface contamination. No wonder they have issues. What we got on in the side chat? We're fired up over here. It looks like Rooster following up on the pharmacy thing. Controlled substance IV Vicodin no longer prescribed class 2s. Is that because of a regulatory glitch, like they broke the law, or like they just wanted to not deal with the feds anymore? Or you may not know that answer, but just a thought, Rooster. Oh, that's solid advice, Barry. Stay out of pharmaceuticals if you can. There's a short time need and for some of that stuff, but don't make it your life. Um, dealing with that stuff, I would recommend. Land of Land and Land is with us. Good morning. How's it going? You're also are you technically in the high desert? You should be, even though you're in those valleys. I think you're technically still a high desert. Walter, new crappy place to talk about? You talking about Pakistan? Well, it's just a reminder of some of the things going on that are all going to trickle down at some point. Either they're going to want Americans to go in and help them out, or they're going to start a war with somebody else. Like if you have India and Pakistan fighting over water, and they're both nuclear powers, like how's that going to go down? Then technically Pakistan and India are still at war. If you know where the Kashmir region is, they're up there at 18,000 feet, holding border standoff going on up there. That's something to look into if you don't know about it. Basically what they call fighting on the roof of the world. Yeah, Land of Land and Land. Don't do big words this early in the morning. Land and Land is a hard one too. Millions of pills and a few thousand people set out a red flag. Oh, do you think they got? Oh, they came after them because their pill distribution. Do you think they may have been a one of those places that pharmacies that overprescribes for their population? A lot of people getting busted on that opioid deal. Is definitely hitting a lot of people. Pharmacies are getting caught up, and also in a lot of what's the word for it? People run into an area. We're having this in Nevada. People from California will come in with fake prescriptions and hit a pharmacy and basically clean them out of opioids and take them back and resell them in California. There's a lot of pharmacy fraud going on in that respect. The pharmacies, like the way the whole prescription process works, even though automation's popular, a lot of things are still physical prescriptions. People have talked about they come in with these paper scripts that are forged, and they'll go up and down, they steal them from doctors' offices or whatever, and they'll go up and down the state, hitting pharmacies, doing prescriptions, getting all the opioids, and taking them back to California and selling them at like $1, making $100 off $1 type of profits. But the pharmacy, I could see getting hit if they, because they just write the prescription. If they see a prescription, okay, here you go, looks legit. So maybe something like that going on. Hey, good morning, Castaway. How's things down under there? Rob and Nia, how you doing, Rob? Good morning, fam. What's up? So final article of the day here. We're going to hit up about the Oregon gun ban. We talked about this in a chat a couple months ago with High Desert Tactical, our good friend Trevor. So this is a follow-up to that. This is from yesterday. So the Oregon gun ban, trying to make history. This is out of an Oregon paper, so this is local. The window for submitting signatures is closing. Backers of the ban on semi-automatic military-style weapons. Pretty much, we read through this in a chat. It pretty much bans anything that has. Obviously, it's all cosmetically based. If your gun looks a certain way, it's banned. There's no practical. It's like all gun bans. They're trying to, like they say, they're coming to get them all. It's beginning to petition voters this week. Oregon State Supreme Court announced plans to issue an opinion Wednesday on final ballot language on what they call Initiative Petition 43. It's one of the final hurdles. The backers of the petition face where they begin a frantic push to collect 88,000 signatures by July 6th. They need 88,000 signatures. So they're going to have to hit the streets of Portland pretty hard. Portland, Salem, University of Oregon, Oregon State University. I'd imagine where the majority of these petitioners will be located. We are ready, says Mark Knutson, one of the chief petitioners behind the ban. We have well over 1,000 people who are trained, and another 800 who've accessed our training. So they're looking at about 1,800 petition gatherers to try to get 88,000. I don't know, do the math. 800 signatures per petitioner. Anybody that's ever done petitioning, that's a lot of work, especially in 2 weeks. If you are going to get a petition signed, if you get 200 a week, you'd be doing pretty good. They might want to bump their numbers up. But of course, it all depends on the popularity of the petition too. But every day delayed reduces the likelihood of Knutson's Lift Every Voice coalition will be successful. It's still not clear where they might be able to start collecting signatures. Supreme Court has to rule on a ballot title. Oregon Secretary of State's office has to up to 3 business days to approve official templates, which between the governor's direction and Secretary of State's probably in on it, so they'll probably rush that through, expedite it. Knutson says his group hopes the state office will expedite the process so we can have the template by Friday. So apparently this is a faith-based effort to restrict your rights. It's going to circulate petitions over a weekend to worship services around the state. I don't know how that strategy works. I've never, well, I don't know. Oregon's a little different than the rest of the country. Most people that go to church, I've always found, have a belief they can defend themselves. Sell your cloak and get a sword, that type of thing. So they're on the deadline to try to get signatures before this, so they can get it on the ballot for this fall. Obviously, they'd probably hold on to the language if they don't make this and try to do it next cycle. We did see a couple weeks ago where that Deerfield, Illinois, had its gun ban overturned because it couldn't supersede state law. People who own those items, so if this law takes effect, people who own those items before the law took effect could still lawfully possess and use them, but they would have to register with the Oregon State Police and pass a background check. Otherwise, it's registration before confiscation. That's the only purpose. Illegal possession of regulated or magazine would be a Class B felony. Supreme Court's involvement in the ballot title stems from appeals in pro-gun groups who take issue with the ballot language crafted by the Oregon Department of Justice. In particular, the question of the use of the term assault weapon, obviously, because that's a very vague term. They have to define it very specifically. So Oregon Firearms Federation chimes in that the drafters of the initiative employed a definition of assault weapon that varies from any common understanding of the term. A voter with particular concerns about AR-15 rifles would not know that IP-43 applies to various shotguns, hunting rifles, and rimfire rifles. True, because any handgun stock modifications, adjustable stock, pistol grip affixed to your shotgun or any type of rifle, all that, all the above. Yeah, it's all purely cosmetic, has nothing to do with the function of the weapon, and assault's an action, not an actual rifle. But nobody wants to tell them that. This is the lone gun control measure still vying for a place on the November ballot. We'll have to get Trevor, see what his opinion, what's going on with this, how it's going on the ground. He's in Eastern Oregon, but see how it's faring. He was kind of worried about it the last we talked about it. So that's going on in Oregon. Again, there's always examples of tyranny to follow in certain places. But that's your kind of your Wednesday hump day. Where are we at in the side chat? You guys calm down there a little bit, it looks like. Or did I just lose you all? So gun ban not quite in full effect, but still on the measure of possibilities for the year. Hey Barry, yeah, Barry, the Bureau of Chemistry, right? Yeah, that was a good catch earlier in the week. The Bureau of Chemistry. The FDA should start paying down our national debt. Yeah, if we got rid of it, we might be able to pay down some national debt. Yeah, 13 billion is not really a huge number though, Barry, when you think of the larger economy, and especially when you think of the debt. 13 billion doesn't even put a dent in 21 trillion. It's not even, it's a drop in the bucket. It's not even that much. All right, folks, there's some rundown of some of the highlights going on. The trade wars are still going on. They keep blaming the fluctuations in the stock market to all this stuff, but Wait, what is this? Supreme Court rules non-union workers cannot be forced to pay fees to public sector unions. Well, I would hope not. I wonder what state that came out of. Interesting, but yeah, they determined that for private sector a long time ago, or last year maybe, not a long time ago. But as long as people keep buying into the dollar because they're concerned about war and these tariffs and stuff, that's going to hold a lot of things in check and let inflation run. Inflation is your enemy. But thanks for joining us, everybody. Barry, Alicia, Walter, Rob, and Nia, Castaway, all the usual suspects. We will check back in with you guys Friday morning. Live free.